Hey, fam, thank you for tuning in. This is the Briefcase. We told you we're going to do it. We done did it. We're going to bring it to you live. We're talking about CNM, poly, all types of relationships, open, closed. And we have our experts here today. And we have one coming on. She'll be here in a few minutes. So we want to just go ahead and start with the introduction. We're going to clown around for a little bit, and then we'll get right into the topic of things. But if this is your first time, remember that we want your involvement. We want you to go ahead and participate, add comments, um, and if we can, if we can fit you in, we might even get you on with us. So, but right now, just add your comments so we can interact with you, see what kind of questions you have along the way, and we'll do our best to make sure that we answer all the things that you have. And if we can't do it tonight, we'll do it the next day, so on and so
Time
forth.
out.
Go ahead.
Miss Ruby Johnson. Miss Polly Dallas herself is in the waiting room. Can you please let her in? She's
Oh,
knocking.
I
Knock,
got.
knock, knock.
I got to put big time up in here. Hey, there go big time. Hey,
Hi.
it's a party now.
You're so stupid.
Ow.
What's happening?
Oh, nothing much. Hey, man, we ready.
Hey,
We are ready.
yes. Yes, I'm ready. Hi, Dr. Monica. Renee. Hey, Renee. Chastity. Boris.
What's
What's going on,
good?
bro?
Nothing much. Just finished with a client.
Hey,
Yeah.
man, working. I love it. Working
Yeah.
woman.
So take this moment, guys, and share this video out. So if you know of anybody that needs to hear about this, know about this, those who are on the panel, please share it out on your professional pages. This is a great time to do that. Get people in the room. We'll do the whole intro thing. Then we're going to jump right in.
Okay. I got to figure out, how do I share this, y'all? Come on now.
You click the share button. It's a little arrow.
You need
I'm
to-
playing. Go to the briefcase. I got you. I said I'm playing. Go to the briefcase. The Facebook page, the briefcase. And then we're live right now. So if you click the
Okay.
share button on that, you'll be able to share it out.
Okay, don't make me talk real bad about you, Chastity.
Don't talk bad
Real
about it.
bad.
Don't do it. Don't
Talk
do
bad
it.
Real
about it anyway. We'll work that on out.
Shit. Real bad. So is it everything goes in the way of language and all that good stuff, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
This
Say
is
what
the
you gotta
briefcase. This is, if you are listening to this and your children are anywhere in the vicinity, this is not the conversation to have in front of your children. You need to get some headphones. You need to go listen to this in your car, in your prayer closet, wherever you need to be.
Not the prayer
This is
closet.
not decent.
I know.
Hey, we got prayer warriors. You know, prayer warriors like sex too, and relationships.
So this is going to be one of those that you definitely don't want to have your little ones listening to necessarily. I mean, we do believe in sex positive, age appropriate sex ed, so we all for it. I mean, we bought that life. I mean, what's better than one sex therapist, 3 sex therapists? I say 5. But anyways, yeah, make sure you are not listening to this unless you want your kids to learn about consensual non-monogamy, polyamory, and all the things relationship-wise. I share these things with my children, so everybody different.
Right. Okay. All right.
So let's go ahead and kick this off with did everybody get their shares out?
Yeah, I shared it on my timeline. I don't know.
Beautiful. Let's go ahead and get the proper introductions out there, so everybody knows who we're working with, who we're talking to, so we can go ahead and start the interactions with everybody. And because I'm such a gentleman, I'm just going to go ahead and say ladies first.
Oh shit.
Feel free to have your swag moment. Talk about anything that you used to do, still do, new things coming, put plugs in. We love it. We share all the love here.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chastity.
You got it, Chaz.
Why you want to start with me?
Well,
Because you set the tone, so I know what to say after you say it.
Exactly.
So my name, don't do that. So my name is Chastity Chandler. I am a certified sex therapist in the state of Florida. And I help people, I guess, spice things up from the boardroom to the bedroom. I am also the author, visionary author of Sex After Divorce. Make sure you get that ChastityChandler.com. And I am so excited to be joined with my fellow sex experts tonight. So y'all asked for it on our review of Insecure, and I said, nope, we ain't gonna get into it. I'm gonna bring the two experts that I know that know a lot about these subjects to bring them to y'all, basically your front door and on your couch, so we can have this courageous conversation tonight. So I'm glad to be here.
Okay.
And it does take courage, for sure. So,
Okay.
My name is Greg Dawson. I am also a sex therapist working out of Dallas, Texas, working in mental health therapy, of course, sex therapy of different ages, also working with sex offenders as well. I have my private practice, Kaya, come as you are, KayaToday.com. Come check me out, get an appointment if you need. Also, Compassion is also my party site. So if you need to throw something and also have a little fun, check me out there too. And I don't have any books like my famous other sex therapists in here, but I got one coming. I'm working on one coming.
No pun intended.
So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed it tonight. We really love talking about these things. So thank you for tuning in.
Okay. Hi, I am Renelle. I'm Noir sex therapist. I am a certified sex therapist. I label myself the infidelity and intimacy recovery strategist. I specialize in infidelity.
Yes.
I believe despite what all you've been through, even chaos or betrayal, you deserve pleasure. You can find me at Noir Sex Therapist, or if you're having problems with affairs and you just want to commit to healing, I am at Affair Aftercare.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Ruby Bowie Johnson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and sex therapist here in Dallas, Texas. Right now, like everyone, my office is online, so I'm international. But please, if you are needing any help, I work with individuals who are open in their relationship, from polyamory to open relationship, non-monogamy, lifestyle. I'm also someone who specializes with kink and BDSM and how that crossover looks like with power, with kink and polyamory. I also work with individuals who are simply wanting to explore and learn to talk about sex, be it you queer, same-sex relationships, marriage, it all. So this topic is my passion. I'm excited. I actually have a conference that's an annual conference. Unfortunately, it was postponed this year due to the pandemic, but we are going to be back in the fall, hopefully, here in the DFW area. And so that's me.
What month?
We're looking at the first week in November.
Okay, if you said September, I was going to cry. Okay, cool.
She got something in November. What, you got something in September? Okay.
Why you worry about what I got? All right, going on. Dr. Monica.
All right.
We got sex down south. What you talking about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Monica. So I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Georgia, and I currently own the private practice and mental health network that goes by the name Therapy for Queer People of Color.
Oh, shit. Oh, really?
You didn't know that?
Yes.
Oh, you ain't on the directory?
Huh?
You not on the directory?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to have to talk, Dr. Monica. Yes.
Yes. I thought you knew that, Chastity.
I thought you did too. You know what I'm saying?
No, I need to come on.
See, this is why you gotta be at the briefcase, in the briefcase, on the briefcase. This is where all we handle all the business.
Yes,
All right, but go ahead.
yes. So yes, my private practice and mental health network, Therapy for Queer People of Color, is my absolute passion. It's my baby. One of the things that I love to do and I don't get to do as much of it as I would like to, is presenting on subjects that are important to me, both personally and professionally. I personally have been consensually non-monogamous for over 13 years. And so I think it hasn't been until more recently that I have started to explore, over the past like maybe 4 or 5 years, where I've started to explore what that means in clinical practice, because I am seeing more and more consensually non-monogamous polyamorous couples coming in for therapy. And so that is super exciting for me, because I'm like, yes, this is exactly the kind of work that I love, that I want to be doing when it comes to relationship therapy. And so I am excited to bring a wealth of personal knowledge and background related to this topic, as well as professional research, presentations, and just really doing a lot of work to push the conversations forward in academic communities, in professional psychology, in psychology fields, because it's so centered around monogamy and heteronormativity that what I find is a lot of even the trainees and students that I work with just have no idea like what it means to encounter folks who may come into contact with who are not monogamous. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really critical. I think it's extremely important. And I'm excited to bring the queer lens to this conversation because I identify as a queer woman. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Anytime.
We wouldn't have had it any other way.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for saying yes. So, I mean, we can let Boris start everything, but Boris get a little long-winded. You know, we love Boris. Boris get a little long-winded. We want to make sure.
I'm just gonna salt, pepper, and be the side dish and sprinkle in when I need to, because
we want to make sure that the people get all the information that they need tonight. I want to first shout out all of our fellow sexperts that's on support and sharing, liking. I see y'all. Shout out to all the sexperts. If you're a sexpert, drop a red heart in the comments. Shout out to you real quick. So let's jump right into it. Right? Somebody has already asked what kink and BDSM is, but I know people are wondering, what is consensual non-monogamy? Right? What is polyamory? What are those things? So I'm going to give the consensual non-monogamy question to Dr. Monica, and I'm going to give the polyamory question to Ruby, because I feel like that's how it needs to go.
All right. So I'll kick us off with consensual non-monogamy. So the way that I generally like to break it down to clients, or even just folks who are newly learning about non-monogamy, is like if you think about two ends of a spectrum and you think about monogamy being on one end of the spectrum, you can often look at non-monogamy as the other end of the spectrum. And so a lot of times in the community, we look at it as somewhat of an umbrella term that can encompass a lot of different ways of relating or engaging with other folks. But really, on a just basic level, it's any type of relationship dynamic that is not exclusively monogamous. So, if you and your partner like to swing, or, maybe you if you decide you want to have multiple loving partners, or even polygamy, you think of a lot of like popular shows on TV nowadays with, I can't remember the name of the most recent one. They're escaping me right now. But a lot of the shows where, you have one husband, multiple wives, one wife, multiple husbands.
Sister wives.
Yeah. There we go. So like all of those types of shows are depicting different types of non-monogamous relationships. And then Ruby can get into more specifically what poly is.
Hello. So just very, very briefly, how I break down polyamory. Polyamory is when an individual can have multiple simultaneous relationships where everyone consents and is aware of, say, those sexual committed or romantic, non-romantic relationships. I kind of leave it open-ended like that to include everyone who has all the different types of relationships that can include romance, no romance, sex, no sex, etc. But polyamory at its root, poly, many, more love, so many loves is involved in that. So that's how I define polyamory. But consent and awareness is really important.
Yes, and also just to tie into that consent piece as well, with consensual non-monogamy, it's important to understand that consent piece is what differentiates non-monogamy, ethical non-monogamy from cheating. So the idea that everyone involved in this dynamic is aware, they are consenting, they are interested in participating in this setup.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we'll just send them to Renee for a therapy session.
Yeah. Renee can handle that. We gonna direct them right on to a fair aftercare. I mean, I feel a little bit, but a fair aftercare. That's where they need to be.
That is what I want to talk about. I want to jump off and get my question out, because I deal with this a lot in my practice. I deal with infidelity. I deal with a lot of infidelity, and people come in, and I always talk about monogamy should not be assumed; it should be discussed. And a lot of times it's not discussed, so it's assumed. So I'm having a lot of people come in, and I'm sorry to say, but it's mostly my women, a heterosexual relationship, mostly my women who be like, well, you know what? I think that I told him that maybe we should open up the relationship. So, and then I have the males come in, because usually males be like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So a lot of times, are you guys seeing that where people come to you where they want to skip over me and just like, no, we want to go into this open relationship, and it's one partner more than the other?
Oh, yes. Often. I do. I often see that where there is an interest in opening the relationship, and it just goes right into, oh, let's just start having sex with people. There's no conversations. There's no understanding of what it means.
Okay.
There's no recognition that you're basically going to be deconstructing the original contract of your relationship and adopting something new. This requires research, understanding, conversations. And where things implode is when there is not any discussion on what monogamy is, because there's different types of monogamy, from social, emotional, physical, to where you want to go and opening your relationship. Do you want to go to, physical opening up, emotional opening up,
Right.
So yes, these conversations are not typically had. Many times these are conversations to be had that they want to fix something going on within the relationship. Or they saw somebody's TV show and like, oh, that looks fun. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
And I see that, and I always say, just as my question to them is, you can't handle one. How you gonna handle more than one? Right. And I was like, this is, when you go to that, you can't communicate now. That's not how you going to communicate. And the men, and we talk about that because we're sex therapists, they think of this as sex. Some of them, like, I just want to have sex. And I tell them it's more than sex. That's a whole relationship. And I'm like, if some of you can't even communicate in the bedroom or satisfy one partner, and I come like that, because they have to know, because they think that this is going to work it out. And just like you said, Ruby, it's not. So thank you for that answer. I just think we need to address that, because I am facing that a lot.
Right. And and another thing is, if it's simply about wanting to fuck a lot, can I say that? If it's simply about wanting to fuck a lot, then say that. That's what it's about. But if you're wanting to, and be explicit in exactly what is your end goal here? What are you looking to get out of this? Are you looking to augment our relationship, add on to it? Or are you looking to say, I just want someone, when you're not acting right, I want someone over here that is, having those type of conversations.
I'm gonna add that.
When somebody comes to your office, and this goes to anybody, how often is it that people are having issues with those scripts, those relational expectations, and trying to convert into understanding what CNM is, how
Damn,
they can
Boris.
become poly. Um, well, I just feel like, for me, men are so stuck on, we have to be this and that because our parents told us you know what I mean, and so we have to protect and do all this other stuff, and there's all these scripts that we have to, kind of just abide by. And I really think that, lending yourself to a relationship in monogamy that is really mutually exclusive and trusting, and then going into CNM, you could see the richness of all that. You don't have to live by all those scripts. You can share the wealth in so many parts of your relationship. And so I don't know, but just looking at it from the man's perspective, I feel like it would probably be tougher for men to kind of deal with CNM and poly because all the things that we have to do.
So I think we always default to gender. See, me personally, and I know she gonna bring the queer. I know you gonna bring the queer into the conversation, so I don't got to do it. I know you gonna bring it
Let's
in,
talk
so I ain't
about
got
it.
to do it. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. But what I will say I mean, I currently right now, I see couples all the time who are consensual non-monogamous, who are polyamorous, or who are looking to get into that. Even couples who are looking to maybe even get into threesomes. And I kind of break that down. Well, what's allowed, what's not allowed? Who gonna be blowing, licking, sucking, doing what? Is visitation okay for both? Like all of those things. And those are like the things that people typically, even for a simple threesome, those are the things that are not discussed and are not explored. So one of the things that I love out of one of the resources that Dr. Monica told me to get last year after she presented in my telesummit, it talks about how cheating and infidelity and all those things, even when people try to bring them over to consensual non-monogamy and polyamorous relationships, normally they're not successful,
Yeah.
right? I see a lot of people kind of wanting to get into this lifestyle because of X, Y, and Z. They don't do any homework. They don't have any sort of lens for research. It's just like, hey, we're gonna get out here, we're gonna chop out here, we're gonna find one or two extra partners, and like, this is gonna solve all of our problems. Which is just like Renelle said, it's gonna be great once you get it, it works and all of those things, but it's hard work managing more than one partner, especially when you are not emotionally, physically, mentally, sexually, spiritually, etc. equipped to handle all the things.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking also, a lot of times I get couples coming in wanting to open up or, questioning, starting those early preliminary conversations about opening up their relationship. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, because you're going to need to do a lot of it, is communication. I mean, if your communication skills are trash in your regular, in your dynamic with one other person, and you're just trying to jump head first into dealing with multiple people, it's really just going to magnify a lot of existing issues. It's not, a lot of people think, oh, well, bringing someone in is going to fix things. It's really just going to magnify the problems that already exist and probably create a lot more turmoil and issues and drama in your life, because now it's not even in the confines of a dyad. Now it's, involving multiple people. So yeah, it's definitely tricky, but communication is like one of the pillars, one of the cornerstones of being able to establish healthy, trusting bonds when you're talking about getting into opening up a relationship and considering consensual non-monogamy.
Yes, ma'am. Can we go to the questions for a second?
So we got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got your ass.
You got it.
So look, Angelica Turner has to have to do as in learned obligations, and I think that was going back to my comment. But yes, there's a lot of things that we have to do, or we're not successful as men in our relationships, and that tends to falter. So just like Dr. Monica was saying, if we could really work on the communications and let down the cultural expectations or whatnot, or learned expectations, I think there's so much more that people can learn from CNM and poly. It's just a beautiful thing.
See, when you go back to that have to situation that you're talking about, that's going back to that hyper masculinity thing, and black men got to do X, Y, and Z. It's kind of like the black woman in the cake in the superwoman syndrome. Like, we don't have to do and be all those things.
Right.
You know, my motto is you have the power to create and cultivate the relationship you desire, and that's point blank, period. Like, point blank, period. No matter what I've been told, taught, no matter what I learned, I now know that I have a brain of my own. I can think of my own. I have the free will to choose. And like they said before, consent, communication, that's all of it. I don't know, y'all want to chime in on that one, but I know that was about Boris, and then you got Miss Fox Jackson. Or Fox Jackson got a question as well.
What's going on, Dr. Smith? Do you think there's a difference between how different cultures view or approach this topic?
I say yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, even when I think about the history of non-monogamy and just looking at like even the body of literature, the information. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so when I'm thinking about like the body of literature, the people who are, you know, at the forefront of conversations about non-monogamy, polyamory, they're usually white folks. And when it comes to thinking about different types of relationship structures among people of color, at least in when we're talking about in Western culture, Black folks, it's just not something that we talk about. It's not something like I personally did not see any examples aside from unethical non-monogamy, i.e. cheating, infidelity, things like that. You know, it was never presented as an option. Like it was always monogamy is the right way. Monogamy is the only way to successfully be in a relationship with someone else. And so I think culture absolutely plays a part in it.
So I was reading an article, and I don't read too much these days because I'm be working my ass off. But but the article said that about one in every five persons actually engages in CNM, and one out of every five people engaging in CNM, I think, you know, people are ready to have this discussion like tonight. People are interested. People are well into this thing and want to get it moving. People are tired of just being a one-trick pony, if you will.
Yeah,
So,
you know, Black Poly Pride. It's a new event that started last year here in Dallas, and 2020 was going to be in DC, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, things had to change. And the co-founders, Cherie and Shanae, they are individuals who are 35 and under. And so when I think about cultural, I think about age group also, because I'm 47. So at 47, I got into this game, you know, about 10 years ago, right? And I discovered that there was an option to what I was doing in my life and discovered that's who I am. Somebody asked a question about polyamory as an orientation on the thread, and I identify as polyamorous and queer. And so, but with this particular event, they actually talk about the cultural differences as it relates to generational differences, you know, and what needs are, how things are represented and what they look like. And to me, talking to them and working with them is where I learned a whole lot that has just shifted. You know, for me, my introduction to even the idea of something non-monogamous was, you know, what was it? Not When Stella Got a Groove Back. That's the wrong one. She's Got to Have It. You know, from the 1980s, right? She's Got to Have It. And, you know, a woman who wanted to have more than, you know, one sexual partner at that time was a slut, a hoe, was nasty, was all of these things, you know, and in some cultures you would be stoned, killed, just that type of liberation relationally and sexually, and just how you engage with life is not something that is embraced, And so when a client comes to my office, and sometimes it's even just one person wanting to come into my office, I had this client who's from Japan, and she came into the office, and she was 24-year-old woman. She just came here. This is when Toyota moved here. And she was like, I want to explore these different things. And she was talking about how her family would judge her. She would lose face in her family. She was talking about how she felt shame because she wanted these things. And to me, those types of conversations that happen with just being able to have a relationship with more than one person at a time are very powerful. But I can go on for like an hour, so I'll shut up.
We appreciate you, Ruby, every minute, man. You're always welcome over here. So.
I'm just glad we have space.
Yeah.
I'm glad that space is created.
Absolutely.
For everybody. I'm just glad it is out there, because just because you don't believe in it don't make it wrong.
Right.
So you have, I like even just showing this, is just showing everybody that it's a place for everybody. Like I deal with couples of all different orientations who want to come together after betrayal, and that's frowned upon. And maybe if they want to open it up, I got people to refer them to, because that's not my lane, right? Because I am monogamous, but that's not my lane. But I have people who are, who talk about that. I have people, if I'm heterosexual, but if you want to talk about that, I have people who I can refer you to. I think this is just so powerful for all of us to just be on here and letting people know that you are okay. You are okay and you're normal, and it's a space for you.
So absolutely, completely agree. Foxy Jackson says many people have difficulties with being judged by outside family, friends, and associates, and fail to communicate truthfully with themselves, making it even more difficult to do so with others. What are your approaches to helping individuals and couples build the element of communication and overcome the element of feeling judged?
Go ahead, Dr. Lynn.
First of all, nice question. Thank you for putting us to the test.
That is a great question. I think
I couldn't let us pass by that one.
Yeah.
I think for this question, it's layered. There are a number of things that one would need to do and need to begin practicing. I think, when we're talking about the judgment and, the lens of, your family, your friends, society, those types of things, when you're thinking about exploring something, really anything in when we think about it in today's world that goes against the grain or that's not considered traditional, we face a lot of struggles with figuring out what is true for us and how we can stand in that truth authentically. And I think some of that work, some of the unpacking that has to happen there may take individual therapy just to kind of get to a place to where you feel comfortable living in your truth. I think it's important to build a sense of community. A lot of times when you feel isolated and alone, that can, that can magnify, the judgment from others who are not accepting of who you are. But when you're able to find community, like, even in, when I think about like the Facebook groups or, with FetLife has a lot of different poly events that happen. They have poly support groups I've seen on there. So there are a lot of different ways that you can engage with other like-minded individuals who, can be a springboard for helping you to find that confidence within yourself to live more authentically. But then the communication piece is also something that becomes really important. It is also another element that can be addressed both in and outside of therapy, working on being honest with yourself about what you want. If you are wanting to explore non-monogamy, taking the first step and acknowledging that, being upfront with your partners. Like for me, personally, on the dating apps or whatever, when I'm on dating apps, I'm very clear that I'm poly. And so when that opens the door, it puts it out there for me to start a dialogue, or for people to engage, to start a dialogue with me about that and asking me questions. Okay, well, what does that mean for you? And as you practice talking that through, both with yourself, with the people in your tribe, the people in your support group, you gain a sense of confidence in what it means for you and why you're practicing.
Do you feel when you say this in your groups and you let them know, are you doing more education or fighting a stigma? Are they coming with you, oh, you down with that so we can have more than one person? Or it's more you educate on a professional level? Because it seemed like even when people talk about it, they just seem like more of roles. Like, we're going to have all these different people. We're going to have the masculine and this and that. And we're going to have all these people. It seemed like I'm just interested in how do you navigate that conversation?
That's a great question. I think like a lot of things, heteronormativity, gender role expectations are things that we absolutely talk about, especially in queer relationships. I work with heterosexual couples too, but gender roles come into that as well because there are a lot of, gender role expectations are societally prescribed. Nobody is immune to them. We've all, come up in families, generations where we have certain scripts by which we're supposed to act, behave, because you identify as a man or identify as a woman. And so then we're trying to sort through all of that shit and navigate, like, okay, well, now I want to be in a relationship. I'm a woman, I'm a feminine presenting woman. I want to be in a relationship with a more masculine presenting woman or gender non-conforming woman. What does that look like? And then now we want to add other people to the mix. So like it can get complicated and murky real fast. But I think one of the things that I like to center my clients around is just taking it one step at a time. Like, we don't have to figure it all out in one session. We don't need to have all the answers right away. We can take it step by step. We can understand what the end goal is. The end goal is the couple wants to open up their relationship. Okay, boom, we got that. So now we're, as a couple, we're trying to work through some other stuff, but we also want to make room for loving other people. So figuring out a roadmap to get where they want to go, and just taking it a step at a time, working through the different parts and pieces that play into getting to the goal.
Right, absolutely. And to piggyback off of what Dr. Monica said, which is, bringing that social justice piece into it, right? Those power differentials, taking a look at how money plays into it, mental health plays into it, to all of these elements play into our relationships, and taking what you would traditionally have and take for granted by default onto a monogamous dynamic, and then putting that into an consensually non-monogamous dynamic is a fine skill set, and it takes a whole lot of awareness. And so basically individuals are coming into the mix, and I basically highly suggest that we have a couple of individual sessions around sexual scripts, gender roles, religion, family, children, parenting, all of this stuff. We actually have conversations around it. So when you go and negotiate with your partner about what this relationship is going to look like, what will be impacted, you actually are able to have an informed communication, conversation. And I think all of that is really important, because opening a relationship just doesn't happen between two people. And that's the thing. And polyamory is between many people that you're opening up. Many people are impacted.
I think first and foremost, though, it has to start with you. You know, being honest with yourself about what it is that you want, need, and desire. I mean, maybe it doesn't fit the script of what you were taught growing up. Like they're saying, how do you get you go about getting past traditional views that we've been taught? What I learned and what I tell my students, because I teach on a collegiate level, what I tell my students in the human service field is if you're going about this field and you're learning in the counseling field, what you're going to learn is that almost everything you were taught growing up was a lie. Almost everything you were growing up was a lie, and it was a lie that was built on fear. Right?
Yeah.
Our parents, their grandparents, and their grandparents, it's all passed down with fear. So, first of all, me personally, I think a lot of this whole being woke movement and things like that, people are learning that that's what was happening. That they were taught these things are the fear, they're not the truth, and that there are alternatives. I love how they say in More Than Two that monogamy is the default. It's not the only option. So I think pretty much on any level, like I challenge what I was taught growing up. I challenge the belief systems of the people who taught me my belief system. I now know that there's a different way. I now know that that does not fit for me, and I no longer subscribe to what someone tells me I have to subscribe to. We got to realize as well that our sexual health is so important. I am a big proponent of sexual health and sexual wellness. Our physical health and our sexual health are just as important as our physical health. And we put a lot of emphasis on the physical, but we don't put a lot of emphasis on the mental. We don't put a lot of emphasis on the sexual. We are all sexual beings. I love it how Brennan Cox say, I love Jesus and I love sex too, right? The clitoris is only job is for pleasure. That is the only reason why we have it. So I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've been taught, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, from a common sense standpoint, if whomever gave me this one particular piece of my body, this organ, and the only purpose of it is pleasure, then I think they meant for me to have pleasure. I'm just saying, it's just the thought process. So I think the first step is being okay to upset some people. You're gonna ruffle some feathers. I mean, it's just gonna happen. Everybody is not gonna be happy for you, and that is okay. And everybody that you see in these quote unquote so-called monogamous relationships and marriages as 30 and 50 years old does not mean that they are happy. It does not mean that they are fulfilled, and it does not mean that it's a successful marriage. So I think how we look at relationships and how we gauge what's successful, what's not successful, what's right, what's wrong. I mean, maybe we need to be looking at what's healthy versus what's unhealthy, because there are plenty of polyamorous couples and families and pods that have all kinds of beautifully mixed and intertwined families that are thriving. And then here you got this monogamous, toxic relationship over here that's been married for 20 years and it's negatively impact all of the children that have came up and been brought up in it. So we really got to start looking at things, I would say, this is my opinion, both professionally and personally, from a healthy versus unhealthy perspective instead of this right versus wrong. I'm a grown ass woman. I ain't taking no cookie out the cookie jar. Don't smack me. If I know and my partner know or my potential partners know, I ain't doing nothing wrong. I'm just saying, for me, I don't really care because none of my family pay my bills. Don't none of my family take care of my kids, and don't none of my family keep my income coming in. So for me, that's just me. That's just me. This is how I live my life. I've learned to live my life unapologetically, authentically. So either you like it or you don't. Either way, I'm gonna still be eating. My kids gonna still be good, and all as well. So you have to. I think it boils down to: am I more afraid of disappointing people or challenging belief systems that I no longer subscribe to, or am I going to take control of my happiness and do what works best for me and mine?
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, and I like what you just said, Chastity, because one of the big reasons that I was so attracted to polyamory is because it removed that holy grail image out of the pressure off the top of my head of, if I'm not looking like this, one man, one woman, united with one candle, unifying and making one, I have not arrived. I have not made it. There was something missing in my life. I needed to find that one person. Absolutely. For some people, they find their best friend, they find whom they view as their soulmate, and they are able to take that path. But for me, it was so much pressure to get what that looked like. I stayed stuck in so many relationships past their expiration date, just out of the idea that I did not want to be single and I did not want to be alone. It kept me very unhealthy, stayed in a lot of toxic positions. And just the idea of knowing I had a choice, there was option, you know, it removed that desperation. So what I'm saying is that for me, polyamory opened up a new way of viewing what commitment is, what values are, what belief systems are, you know, what things I knew to be true and the only way of going that was so restrictive and had me so imprisoned, right? And so there was a liberation that happened for me personally.
I have a question
And
for
even when
our
we
guest.
think about belief, go ahead.
I have a question for our guests. When having these conversations, we hear the good. I would love for our audience to hear the bad. You know, I would love for our audience to hear like sometimes it doesn't work out and that you have conflict. And that's where you guys come in too, because y'all are not negotiating with like with me, I do couples. When it get more than two, I'll refer out. So I want to just hear from you guys before we start wrapping up about that. It might not be for you, but just because you go over here doesn't mean it's going to be better. You know, that's what I want people to know, that it's going to be better if you make it better, but just know you're going to have concerns and conflicts and stuff that's going to rise. Also, I would just like to hear your point of view on that, because I don't want people to feel like, okay, I'm gonna open up my relationship and everything gonna go good. I would love to hear how you say that now those people need therapy too, and how do you manipulate that?
I think that's an important question, and I think it's important for folks to understand that there is no right or wrong way to be in relationship, whether it's monogamous or no right type of relationship to be in. I'm not one of these people who are out here espousing that non-monogamy and polyamory is somehow more evolved than monogamy, or that it's better, that you're gonna, you know, have all of these amazing games and, you know, everything's gonna be rainbows and sunshine, because that is not true at all. So I think one of the things that centers me and that I talk to my clients about specifically is if you as an individual are struggling, are, you know, toxic, are dealing with a lot of shit and just don't have it together, you're going to carry that into a monogamous relationship, into a polyamorous relationship, into any type, you know, probably into your romantic, your platonic, in all of your relationships. That's going to show up because you're showing up. You're bringing your baggage. You bring whatever you've got going on. So if you're working on yourself and the people that you tend to engage with are also actively working on themselves and doing what they need to do to be healthy individuals, if you've got two healthy individuals coming together to form a monogamous relationship, the likelihood of that being successful and that, you know, being able to work through issues is probably going to be a lot higher. And the same is true of polyamorous or non-monogamous relationships. If you've got individuals who are working on themselves, who are committed to, you know, ethical behavior and committed to each other, the likelihood of that being successful is also going to be greater. And the converse is also true. If you got a bunch of hot ass messes coming together trying to make some stuff work, is probably gonna be problems. And so I'm personally not at all espousing that the grass is greener on the other side just because you may have more people that, you know, you can have sex with or engage with. And I also want to be clear that for me, polyamory and non-monogamy is not about sex and not about, you know, being able to have multiple sexual partners. Yes, that is a nice benefit, but I think that also often gets tied. It also gets lumped into this, okay, oh, it's just a big orgy. we just out here having all the sex, and that's what it's about. That often gets enmeshed in like what polyamory is about, but that's not what the core of it is about. And so I think that's also important to clarify.
Thank you.
Can we go to a question? I think it kind of got answered a little bit, but I don't think we worked through it technically. And it's from Michael King, and he was one of the guys that was on with us at a. We were talking about Insecure, and we actually led into CNM, what is consensual non-monogamy, and he was like, "What is it?" And so anyway, so he's in a traditional relationship, so I'm assuming this is where it kind of comes from. He's like, "How can we go about getting past traditional views that we've been taught?" If you're interested, I'm assuming because he probably is trying to get to the understanding of what CNM is. If you're interested in consensual non-monogamy, how can you move past those traditional views?
I don't know if it's a matter of moving past them, but maybe deconstructing them and looking at it from a different angle. Recognizing that there are some things that are constructed, and maybe you don't even recognize that you don't agree with that, for example. It's in that crisis of deconstruction where things start to come to fruition. Someone mentioned, if you have some unhealthy stuff going on with you, be it around insecurities, if you're looking to change your relationship dynamic, something that has probably kept those insecurities hidden, and you open up your relationship, all of that stuff is going to come out. And so that's when all of the revelation happens. So pushing past traditional values is probably more a line of, I'm going to have the courage to explore something new. That's the way I would view that. Somebody else can have a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think also, just to add to that, sort of in the process of that deconstructing, figuring out, once it's all laid out on the table, being able to be honest with yourself and asking tough questions of yourself, like, is this really for me? I know this is how I was raised. These are the values that were instilled in me. But as I'm really breaking this down, is this what I really want? Does this fit for my life?
Mm-hmm. Especially folks of color, I'm going to take it here, and this is going to be probably a whole nother show, talking about how our relationships and sexual selves have been colonized. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And looking at how we can decolonize who we are as a Black community is something that's really important, because that's primarily who I work with in my office, right? And so taking a look at that process and just the freedom that comes from that is just beautiful. No matter if you decide to be in a relationship with one person or be in a relationship with multiple people, however that you want to look at it. My thing is just, can you get someplace where you start to find out who you are as an individual, period? I think therapy is a gift that if I didn't have it, I would still be in relationships with narcissists, sociopaths.
Go on, tell it, Ruby. Go on, tell it. Go on, tell it.
Doing all the beans right now.
All kinds of stuff.
Personal testimony. I love it.
I would be
And
very,
listen,
very confused.
If it wasn't for therapy.
Yes.
Listen, I always say, if your therapist doesn't have a therapist or never been to therapy, don't let them be your therapist.
Hell no. Hell no. I am a better therapist for it, let me tell you, because I got to be able to see my shit coming, so I'm not transferring onto you.
Correct. Exactly.
Right.
So a lot of our people want to know how they can individually get in touch with us. So what we're going to do is we'll post everybody's business pages, links, and all that stuff in the briefcase. So if anybody wants to reach out individually, they can. But also there's somebody specifically in Georgia, so I've already plugged Dr. Monica because she's in Georgia and licensed in Georgia. So we want to make sure we're not, we're doing things ethically on that way, as well. Um,
Yeah.
any last any last minute questions, comments, etc. Y'all know me, I'm always thinking. So y'all know I'm come up with something. We'll do a part two, or maybe we run the telesummit back again. I don't know what we're gonna do, but it's gonna
Let's
be
do the
great.
telephone.
It's time for us to talk about
Of course you say
monogamy
that.
and infidelity. Hey.
Yes. um,
I'm glad to see you
I'm gonna
excited
need a
about this.
drink for that one.
yeah. Somebody mentioned
That's a
kink
wind down Wednesday topic.
BDSM. If you
Oh
want to
yeah.
Yeah,
know
go
what
there.
if you want to know what BDSM is, BDSM is bondage, discipline, sadomasochism, right? If you want to know what kink is the umbrella used for alternative sexual tastes, fantasies, and practices, right?
Hey.
And so
All good
Yes.
things.
combining
All
that
good
with
things.
polyamory is a beautiful, scary thing that you can really enjoy.
Really enjoy.
So
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, listen, that's a whole nother live.
that's a
That
whole
is a
nother life.
whole
Michael
nother
asked,
live.
do
That
That's a
is
whole nother live.
listen.
that is a life that I want to participate in. Please.
Yes,
Oh,
I as
that's gonna
well.
be a
Oh yeah.
briefcase after dark type
So everybody
situation. I'm talking about lay out all the things, show them
Yes,
how to work it,
yes,
like all this
yes,
stuff.
okay?
yes. Boys,
So Michael asked, but Michael asked, do we accept different health insurance carriers? So I'm gonna give you the blanket answer on that, Michael. Most insurance companies will not cover sex therapy. Okay, let me be. We're gonna have an honest and very raw moment right now. Not even
Yeah.
couples counseling. There's a loophole as to how we can build couples counseling, but let me explain that real quick. As a couples counselor, your relationship is not a medical necessity. Okay, so the only way in which we can bill insurance, first of all, for anything is if there is a DSM-5 diagnosis that's associated with why you would be coming in as a couple. So if your partner say, "Oh, they just get on my nerves," and we always arguing,
that's
not
anxiety.
necessarily billable. I can
That's
help you. I can
that's
help you.
anxiety.
I feel what you're saying, but we try to be ethical on this live show. We gonna make sure we give them the ethical answers now.
That is
Um,
ethical. That's
I can help
anxiety.
you. I can help you improve your communication, but I'm not going to prison for insurance fraud for the $60 they was gonna give me to do it. I'm just gonna keep it 100 with you. That's just me. Everybody else might be different, but how insurance works is a little bit tricky. And then if we're using sex therapy techniques, technically that's a different code, and normally they're not going to cover it. Very few insurance companies will even cover couples counseling. So we know that if your marriage, your relationship, or your partnership is not going right, it could in turn impact your mental health. But also understand the only
Exactly.
way we can do that is to diagnose you. So you got to understand that too. So I'm one of those therapists that explains that. I see lots of other therapists. I see first responders. I see all politicians, you name it. I've seen them over the years after being in this field for so long, and a lot of people just don't want those labels, those diagnoses, because once we give it to you, we have no control over where it goes. So if your partner decides to divorce you and now want to use your mental health diagnosis against you, there's nothing we can do about that. We get called into court, we can't lie. So like just a lot of times people just want to know all their options. I would say check your EAPs, your employee assistance program. See if you can get EAP sessions. They're a lot more lenient on what the diagnosis or what we're document needs to be for those. I would also say if you have an FSA or HSA through your job, those are those pre-tax deductions that they take. Most therapists, most licensed therapists will take FSAs and HSAs. And so that's money that's already set aside that you can actually use and write off as well. So those are just a few options other than insurance, but there's also Open Path,
Mhm.
where you can see a therapist for as little as $30 for individual, as little as $60 for a couple. So there's all types of other ways to see a therapist, and there's loopholes that we do to help people. But again, making sure that we are operating in an ethical fashion as well, because I'm not going to prison for y'all. I love y'all. I want to help y'all, but I ain't going to jail for y'all. Y'all can keep that in them
Very
$60 that the insurance company was gonna pay me, and y'all can have a good old time figuring it out.
Come on, Black Thought. Bring us home, Black Thought. Bring us home.
Yeah.
Y'all know I gotta keep it real.
Infidelity. And
Sure.
we'll have to have some wine and some drinks for that one because it looks like and sounds like it's going to be a really good one. So anyway, I want to thank our guests for coming out. You did such a beautiful job. You really did. Thank you. Thank you. And it seems like we got you
Y'all
coming.
make my heart warm. Don't forget, I'm still real talking about this Sex Talk No Chaser anthology for the sex purse. I'm just gonna put it back out there in the atmosphere. I said it last year. Y'all thought I was playing. I'm just saying because y'all know I'm about that life. So just be ready, be prepared, because the people need to hear what you gotta say, and you need to make a coin off of it.
Yeah.
What is she talking about?
Her next book.
See, Ruby, Ruby.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna say this because then Renelle finna reel us in. I know she is. So I had a sexual health and wellness telesummit last year where it was 17 of us on it, right? It was bomb. I guess she was busy and booked. I'm sorry. But at the end of I told them about the anthology, Sex Talk No Chaser, which you know is my hashtag. We're gonna do a whole little sexology type vibe thing. I got you. We're gonna run back the summit too. So I'm gonna get with everybody. Just be prepared, be ready.
I'm posting the old school pictures.
This year it won't be necessarily free 99 though, because we in these corona times and we gotta get our coins. So it might be a little fee, a little fee, get y'all paid and stuff like that. So yeah.
Come on, Black Thought.
So
Okay.
any closing thoughts, any last words for the beautiful audience?
This was a lot of fun.
Yes, I agree. I would say thank you all for coming. I think this topic is so important and it's one that's so underrepresented among Black people, and people of color as well. We just don't get to hear about different types of relationships, structures, and styles, different ways to relate to other people in a romantic way. And so I think it's extremely important for us to be able to have these kinds of forums of folks who are bringing different perspectives on the subject to educate folks. So I love it. Thank you for having me.
Thank
So
you.
I always end with never assume monogamy, discuss. I just think that's going to be the big thing. Just don't assume somebody's on the same page as you. That should be a discussion. And like always, communicate before coming.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, that does it. Ladies and gentlemen, all outside and in between. We love y'all. Tune back
Wait,
in.
Chastity, please let Chastity say something. Look at it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
If you really are thinking or contemplating, or maybe what you heard today from anybody on the panel maybe spoke to your heart, maybe it's more true to who you are, and you're maybe not this monogamous person you thought you were. I want to stress the importance of doing your own research. I know this is one of the books that Dr. Monica recommended last year after I went through her webinar in the telesummit, and it's thick. I did get the Audible though. I did cheat a little bit. I got Audible for y'all to see me walking all the miles. I've been listening to this book, but you gotta do the research. For me, what I found as a consensual non-monogamous person is that that no longer fits who I am. So before I jump in, do this, do that, I'm doing my due diligence. Not only am I a professional that deals in this realm, but when it's a personal situation, it's a little bit different. It's a different hat. So make sure you are doing your research. There's plenty of stuff out there. When we plug Dr. Monica's site and Ruby's site, you will see actual links to other resources as well. Make sure you guys do your due diligence, do your research, and reach out to a sexuality professional. Notice what I just said there. I didn't say a therapist. I said a sexuality professional if we're dealing with sexuality topics, issues. Just like you wouldn't go to a brain surgeon for heart surgery. All therapists are not created equal. So please make sure you are reaching out to sexuality professionals about your whole entire sex life. That's all I got to say. You have the power to create and cultivate the relationships that you desire. That's it. I'm done.
Ruby, you got something? Or you good?
Y'all covered everything. Look, I'm
She
just.
good. Okay.
She
Y'all-
just threw it out. Fuck it.
I know when I need to shut the hell up. I'm gonna let that go ahead and go.
That is what my
We'll see y'all
dissertation.
next
That is what my
time.
dissertation topic was on. So
Monica, can I message you?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.